welcome, and yes, I know I look like a mess. However, I am in crazy newspapers on the wall, red strings everywhere moment, because I was just recently reminded of a, hyper fixation that little me had many years ago, and I kind of want to talk about it because I still have some of the fun facts up in my head, and it's been itching at my brain to talk about it. So I wanted to do that. I know it's beginning of content week, but I mean, I haven't done one of these in a hot minute. A hot minute probably being a week or two. But yeah, I wanted to talk about this. So, the hyperfixation little me had, and excuse the awful handwriting, this was years ago. Cthulhu! I just found that notebook. So, a little before the notebook, I used to be, I don't know how long ago it was, it doesn't have a date on it, so I don't know. I don't know how long ago it was, but it was years ago. I was talking with my father, and I was joking around, and I was talking about Cthulhu, and he kind of mentions in the conversation, you need to know about it. And so my brain was okay, challenge accepted. Because he was getting tired of me talking about it, and he was like, do you even know, anything about it? And I was like, all right, challenge accepted. I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna find everything I can on this man. So, I spent, I mean, it doesn't look like much, but I was reading for a hot minute. I spent a couple hours researching stuff, and I kind of want to just mention it. So, the reason I was reminded of this, I want to pull this up real quick. I'll just kind of read it off. But the reason I was reminded of this is because I keep notes, of quotes that I like, and I have a bunch of them. And the one that I was reading through them again, because I wanted to add one, and Call of Cthulhu quote came up. It's I wish I was still an atheist, believing I was born into a harsh, uncaring cosmos, in which my existence was a random roll of the dice, and I was destined to die and rot and then be gone forever, was infinitely more comforting than the truth. And that's the Call of Cthulhu quote. And so it kind of sent me on a little mini spiral, and I found the notebook, and I found some articles, and I kind of just want to talk about this again. And so that's what I'm gonna do. So, that's what this is. Yeah, what's in here isn't a lot. It's spelled wrong as well, some of it. So, the top one is just Cthulhu, alien name, place of birth is Vorel, father, there's his father's name. He has a grandfather. What is that? birth? The 23rd Nebula. I don't know what birth is. He has a grandma, a great-grandmother, 3 kids, which I still remember to this day. I knew that was in this book. Kid's birth. That's sea birth right here. Star of Zoth. Worshippers, alien, the star spawn, I guess that's what they're called. Oh, the star spawn of Cthulhu, my bad. Worshippers, birth, unknown. Worshippers are shapeshifters. That's all that's on here. Couple hours of reading, this is all I got. But I've done a bit more research. I haven't just pulled up the Wikipedia, because that's where I got all this. It was just Wikipedia. But, unlike, every school out there, Wikipedia isn't a bad source to start with, so I started with Wikipedia. I then moved to Britannica for, the definition and the backstory. I also went on to the H.P. Lovecraft, The Call of Cthulhu. It's not, what is it called? it's like the actual website. It's hplovecraft.com. I pulled up the Wikipedia. I want to talk about this and like the movies and stuff like that. So I've said that a billion times. Let's just talk about it. So the movies, let me look this up. Cthulhu movies, there's a couple of them. There's only 2 that I know of. So there was one, it's not even on this list. There's one called Cthulhu. It was in 2007, rated R. It's an hour and 40 minutes long. It's on Tubi, so you can probably watch it for free. And then there was another one. It's not on the list. I can only describe the trailer. It was a movie about this team of researchers going to like the bottom of the ocean and I guess drilling there or something, and lo and behold, of course, they wake up this giant beast, and she has to go walk out to like this area, and she's walking across this like giant space. And all of a sudden, like, the only mention of Cthulhu that I know of, again, I didn't see the movie, was this, I think there's like a flash, or you just see his eyes, but there's this silhouette of Cthulhu, and I wish I could find that movie again. Actually, you know what? Let me see if I can. Okay, I think I found it. It's called, like, Underwater. It was made in 2020. I think that was what was circulating at the time that Cthulhu showed up in that movie. I just rewatched the, not the trailer, but what was supposed to be a Cthulhu scene. I don't know if he's actually in the movie. I can't tell. The quality is not great. But, anyway, that was, I think, the original catalyst that I watched that trailer, and I like kind of really enjoyed this giant under the water monster, because I've always loved that. I like Jaws, I like The Meg, what is it, 30 Meters Down? Yes, 30 Meters Down is a good one, or a movie that I was interested in. What's the one with the cave creatures? The image of the movie is like 4 or 5 girls sitting in the shape of a skull. That movie's good as well. There are certain movies that interest me. A lot of it's underwater, and so when I saw that, I got really into Cthulhu, and I really liked talking about him and, you know, the design of him. But then when this happened, I went into his lore and, you know, where he came from, what was his birthplace, what his worshippers are. But I only went like base level, so this is a really old page. It was last revised in 2009. So, I don't know how good that page is, but Britannica's always updated. So, I'm just going to read bits and pieces, and I just want to kind of do that. So, Cthulhu, a fictional entity created by the fantasy horror writer H.P. Lovecraft, which he's done a lot of horror. He was born in August 20th of 1890. He died March 15th of 1937. He was born in Rhode Island, USA. He's an American author. One of the 20th century masters of the Gothic tale of terror. He was interested in science from childhood, but he had poor health, so it stopped him from attending college. He was a ghostwriter, and then he spent most of his life in seclusion. His fame increased, of course, after his death, as most people's do. He first published the Call of Cthulhu, was in the magazine Weird Tales in 1928. So the monster is described, from what I've heard, a plethora of different ways. Some people describe it as more like of a kraken than anything. Some it's indescribable. I think that was the idea originally of H.P. Lovecraft's original Call of Cthulhu, was that the creature was indescribable. But the most like famous depiction of him is gonna be the really tall creature with the octopus squid face and giant wings. He's got, I think, human hands, if I remember correctly, or human-like hands. And he stands, I mean, he's pretty, well, human isn't the word I'd put there, but, you know, he got fingers. He is always, or not always, but mostly depicted as, like, a really tall figure, like skyscraper tall. There's a phobia of megalophobia, I think, is the fear of large structures or objects. I might be wrong there, but he would definitely classify if that is the definition of megalophobia. So his main description is that, and then if you ever saw him, you would be driven insane and to the brink of insanity. And I think his I might be getting mythos twisted here, but I think he's also in the same kind of realm of the deities. I don't want to say deities. They're like creatures that dream, and we are in that dream. They're within that dream. He's not one of those, but I'm saying he's in the kind of same universe. And we are within that dream, and if they ever wake, our lives and our world would go kaput. So I don't know if he's in that same mythos, but I think he is. And then, let's see, there's a quote here. So the creature is described as a monster of vaguely anthropoid outline, but with an octopus-like head whose face was a mass of feelers, a scaly, rubbery-looking body. I cannot pronounce that. Claws on hind and forefeet, and long, narrow wings behind. So he's kind of a beast. He's characterized as a priest of the Old Ones, a species that came to Earth from the stars before human life arose. The Old Ones went dormant, and their city slipped under Earth's crust beneath the Pacific Ocean. So homies sleeping under there. They communicated with humans by telepathy, and in hidden quarters of the world, uncivilized people remembered and worshipped Cthulhu in rites described as loathsome. So, I think it's in the movie Cthulhu, or in a story that I had heard or something, but Cthulhu, I have heard that Cthulhu only connects with very creative minds, and he will only talk to telepathically creative minds because they're the easiest to connect with, I guess. And once he starts talking to you telepathically, you start to go insane. There's no, like, communication. It is insanity. Because, I mean, I think it's just a part of Cthulhu, but I also think it's, like, discovering your own mortality, or looking at the museum that's holding the bigger picture, right? Everybody, there's that saying, look at the bigger picture. We are, minuscule in this world and in this universe. Well, Cthulhu picks that up and goes, nah, you're minuscule in the museum of what you think is this bigger picture. Well, here's, the museum. So I think that's a part of why you go insane as well. The groups that worshipped Cthulhu had statues that were made of materials supposedly not found on Earth, and chanted the phrase, "In his house at Ryla, dead Cthulhu waits dreaming." And when the conditions are right, the city will rise, and with the help of the eternal Cthulhu cult, Cthulhu will awaken and again rule the world. So, I'm trying to think. When I was going through this years ago, I think the talk about the cult, there was somebody who was talking about it and was obviously labeling them as insane, because Cthulhu is such a grand thing. He's a huge, monster. Why would he care about humans? In the grand scheme of things, if he ever wakes up, you're dead. And it's not like because he would care about you, it's because he wouldn't. Like, the main difference between, like, a creature like Godzilla, okay? Godzilla versus Cthulhu here. Godzilla kills humans because, to my knowledge, because of hatred, because of constant pain, and because they're kind of in the way. Cthulhu would kill people because that would be his morning routine. Like, he'd just wake up and, 1,000 people are dead. Here's it a bit more clear. Cthulhu thinks of us as ants. Okay, you either get left alone or you don't. It doesn't matter. Godzilla thinks of you as, like, something to be murdered, like a serial killer almost, I would think. That's how I differentiate between, like, something like Godzilla and something like Cthulhu. Also, Cthulhu is, like, twice Godzilla's size, maybe 3 times, I don't know. But that was the main point, that the cultists are nuts because Cthulhu, in the end, really doesn't give a crap about people. Why would he? He's this, and we're nothing to him. Less than nothing. Anyway, so, H.P. Lovecraft wrote other stories set in the same universe, inhabited by Cthulhu, among them The Nameless City, as well as the novella The Whisperer in Darkness. Though Lovecraft did not live long enough to see the success of his work, in the decades following his death, other authors began writing stories about the Cthulhu mythos. Other authors like Robert, Stephen King, Neil, and Alan Moore. By the turn of the 21st century, Cthulhu had become a phenomenon at that point. In addition to the phenomenon, the mythos inspired music, horror movies, and games, including board games, card games, tabletop video games, and online games. There's not much about Cthulhu in general because his whole thing is shrouded in mystery, and I don't think that the Call of Cthulhu itself is a very long tale either. Okay, I've pulled up what seems to be a full version of the Call of Cthulhu. It's not that long. It's like maybe a couple pages, so the Call of Cthulhu, and because H.P. Lovecraft died before the Call of Cthulhu, not the Call of Cthulhu, before Cthulhu became a giant sensation, we don't have that much information. We don't have that much, like, description from the author. So a lot of it, I feel like, is... like, what's the way to say this? Like, fan theories? Headcanon? Something in that? Something? So, like, Stephen King, or, what was the other ones? I don't know. I don't even have it anymore. I closed the tab. Like Stephen King. He wrote about Cthulhu, according to Britannica, and that's, I assume, wrote about is take inspiration from and then write whatever. Because I feel like you can't write about something directly if you're not the author. Because let's say I read The Call of Cthulhu, and I get a completely different image of Cthulhu in my head, and then I make that. Well, that's not what the author intended. That's not, Cthulhu, but that's what I think it looks like. And I think that's kind of what we've gotten lore-wise for Cthulhu. It's not blatantly said, but it's what, it has been interpreted throughout the years. So a lot of Cthulhu lore is interpreted, at least I think so. I could be wrong. Okay, Cthulhu was invented by, I've switched sites now. I'm reading more kind of in depth. This is on Wikipedia, so take everything with a grain of salt. Invented by Lovecraft in 1928, the name Cthulhu was probably chosen to echo the word chthonic, ancient Greek, of the earth, as apparently suggested by Lovecraft himself at the end of the 1923 tale The Rats in the Walls, which is another one of his books, or short stories. It was written in September of 1923 and was published in was published in Weird Tales on March 1924. So Lovecraft transcribed the pronunciation of Cthulhu as a mess. I'm going to pronounce it how I've heard it being pronounced, Cthulhu, and said the first syllable pronounced gutturally and very thickly. The U is about like that in full, and the first syllable is not unlike cull in sound, hence the H represents the guttural thickness. There's, some different ways it's pronounced, I assume, but long after Lovecraft's death, Chaosism? Wow. It's a publisher of a tabletop role-playing game. Stated in the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, we say it Cthulhu, even while noting that Lovecraft said it differently. I'm going to use the Cthulhu pronunciation, even though it's wrong. I don't know how else to say it. So, in the relatives, which is written in the notebook, it's just on the Wikipedia relatives. You've got his great-great-grandfather, his grandfather, his grandmother, his parent, and then home. Ryla, which I might have written wrong. I don't know how, but I think I wrote that wrong. Apparently he's male, though I would say, I don't know. I almost want to give Cthulhu like a genderless, because he's like this ancient deity, but I guess we've been referring to Cthulhu as he for so long it's just ingrained in there. Alias, the sleeper of Rayla, high priest of the Great Old Ones, which I put in here, species Great Old One. So there's a publication history, which I wasn't that into. Apparently he's been in politics at some points, like for a joke, like a parody candidate in several elections. In 2010, the Polish presidential election, 2012, and 2016 U.S. presidential elections. So that's interesting. The campaigns usually satirize voters who claim to vote for the lesser evil. Cthulhu for America ran during the 2016 American presidential election, drawing comparisons with other satirical president candidates such as Vermin Supreme, which is an American performance artist. So that's cool. He's been in, political. Cthulhu for America. He might make America better. I don't know what I would love to know what the slogan was for that. Several organisms in actual science have been named after Cthulhu, including the California spider, Pimoa Cthulhu. Pimoa Cthulhu. It's a species of spider family. It's one of the 21 described species in the genus Pimoa. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. There's a couple others, including a moth, and a fossil. So, that's cool. There are 2 microorganisms that assist in the digestion of wood by termites. They have been named after Cthulhu and Cthulhu's daughter, Cthulhu, which is interesting. And then there are a couple references. So even, like, I've been on Wikipedia pages that are, way longer than this. Even in Wikipedia, there is not that much of a description. It more focuses on etymology, spelling, and pronunciation, the history of the publication, the influence on, science and politics. That's it. Description-wise, there is not much for Cthulhu. And I think that's another reason why I was so drawn in, because he's so known, yet not known at all. At least in this general knowledge, right? I'm sure that there are people out there who know way more about Cthulhu than the general public, but for the general public, he is so known, such a figure in everything, in science and politics, which I didn't know, in science and politics, in games, you hear the name Cthulhu, even though pronounced wrong, you hear it. And you know who people are talking about, right? You get it because this is a figure we all know, but nothing is known about him because it was just a short story, I don't think it was intended to go to such a size, and when you take something that has almost nothing and you bring it to such a size, the story can get mixed up. So, I think that's part of another reason why I just wanted to dig into it, because at the end of the day, this doesn't seem like a lot, but there's not a lot more than this, So, little me was onto something. So, yeah, that was just something I had to rant about, talk about. I love Cthulhu. I still love Cthulhu. I love the mythos surrounding him. I like the design that people have put out, the description given. I should probably read Call of Cthulhu at some point, but we'll see how that goes for me. But I don't know why I have these on. But yeah. So, I just wanted to rant about Cthulhu, and I hope you learned something along the way, because I definitely did. So, thank you for watching, thank you for sitting down, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, thank you for hopefully learning something, and I will hopefully see you in the next one, where I don't look like a crazed person.